a really fancy snap-on cardboard box. I'm Bobby J. Welcome back to the channel. Now, this truck here, ever since I finished this one, there's been multiple comments asking questions about this truck in different various videos that I've done. And one of the most recent ones was, hey, can I get a full rundown on that truck, how it's set up and whatnot? So that is what we're gonna do. Now, what this truck is a 2004. It's an early 04, and it is the HO version with a 6-speed, so it is a 305 555 truck. And I call this my barn find because if you're interested in the beginnings of this truck and where it came from, check out this video. Now, from there, it had 56,000 original miles. Never towed anything, never hauled anything hardly. Easy life. It was actually used as a town truck, traveling truck, pretty much by an elderly couple, and I was able to know them. They're practically family. That's how I wound up with the truck. This truck was never actually on the market for sale. This was an inside in the family type deal, and I was very lucky and very fortunate and wound up this truck. And I also, before I bought it, I also took care of the maintenance on this truck for that couple a couple of times before it was actually let go and allowed me to purchase it. So it had 56,000 original miles. Now we're sitting at 72,500. So I put what, 16,000 miles on it so far, and I've had it for, oh, what's it been? Has it even been 2 years? I don't think it's even been 2 years yet. And it was originally a 2500 non-camper shell package. So it was the standard 2500, I guess you would call HD, right? Because it has the Cummins. That automatically means some HD components, even the 3/4 ton. But it did not have the overloads in the sway bar. What I did is I had my 01, and this was actually the setup on my 01 for the most part. And this was my 01. A little bit trippy, right? You got to take a second glance to realize it's not the same truck. Those are two different trucks. But I knew what I wanted. I had a plan in mind, and my 2001 was really starting to reach some pretty high miles, 315,000 miles at that time, and automatic truck, and the weights behind it just kept getting heavier and heavier, more and more stuff to haul. It was time to make a move on something different. Of course, my 22 came along, but then this truck, like I said, it wasn't planned out, but they said, you know what, we're ready to sell it. It's yours. I couldn't let it go. Would you? So here it is. So like I said, we went from a white single wheel 2500. We did the 19.5 conversion. Put the adapters on the front. Obviously, as most people know, the difference between a single wheel and a DRW truck is just the bolt-on adapter in the front. Everything else is the same. In the back, now I got away with, on my 01, which happened to also be originally a 2500 SRW, I was able to bolt the 19.5 straight on without any issues, but the frames and the springs are in a little bit further on a 2nd gen versus 3rd gen. I could not bolt the back duals on. So I wound up and had to go with an 1.5 inch spacer. It is a Bora spacer, and so good high quality. They were not cheap, but they are a good high quality spacer. Supposedly rated for way more weight than you could even put on a 1-ton pickup anyway. So I am very confident, and they've got 16,000 miles on them now, doing all kinds of stuff. I'm pretty confident with this setup because I did not want to think, well, why didn't you just go with the dually rear end? Well, I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to give up the 56,000 mile rear end. This truck still has the original brakes on it. Seriously, in the front too, and they're pretty good. They drove it super easy and never towed anything, and it's a 6-speed. They, you know, riding the clutch, downshifting, still the original brakes. That's the amount of wear, or the lack of, in this truck. I didn't want to give up that rear end for some 200 or 180,000 mile dually rear end. So, and not only this setup is slightly narrower than what a dually rear end with these 19.5s would be. 8 to 10 lug adapters, obviously. Going into what this truck does on a daily basis. This truck on a daily basis, this is a farm slash tow rig slash light, very light service truck. That is the goal with this truck. That is what it does, and in my opinion, it does it really, really well. So, as I've already touched on the drivetrain, we're running with the 90 horse Smarty tune. I would consider to be plenty of power. 6-speed, we've got the original clutch still in it, and it seems to be holding just fine. We'll see as the miles stack up and everything, but right now that clutch is holding together and not slipping under full load. Exhaust brake, I touched on the Jacobs vacuum controlled exhaust brake with the Camaro vacuum pump and that whole setup. The truck itself has, this is the driver's side, we've got a 4-inch turbo back exhaust, going out with duals. I really wanted to have dual exhaust on this truck for whatever reason. I just think the duals look good on dualies, and so I went for it, and I got a cat back. It was not easy. Doing the turbo back here in the Golden State is not an easy task, getting the right parts, especially, it's amazing when you're really just looking for stock parts for an 04.5. But what I did do, I will add, when I did the exhaust brake, I also upgraded the, went to the 4-inch. This truck is now full 4-inch from the turbo all the way back, where, you know, 03, 04 trucks are actually 3.5-inch. They have a 3-inch. Or 3.5-inch elbow coming out of the turbo to a 3.5-inch downpipe. So I ditched all that garbage. We're set up like an 04.5 because that exhaust brake came off of an 06. So everything worked out great. I went and got an 04.5 to 07 factory stock downpipe, and like I said, it leads it back into the 4-inch performance exhaust system. This truck, it does not have a catalytic converter in it. 03, 04 trucks, my understanding is, federal trucks, they don't have a catalytic converter. It was 04.5 and later that had the catalytic converter. Now, the California 235 horse trucks, I think those do have a catalytic converter, but I've never seen one of those in person. I think that's where some of the confusion is, that I think those do, and some people think that because the later ones do. But my understanding is, like the later VP44 second gens and these early third gens on the federal trucks, there is no converter. So this emission system is legal in the crazy state of California, and it does pass emissions. Now, moving on to towing and tooling. This truck has a B&W flip over gooseneck ball. That opens up, I got my plug, and there's the hitch and everything. And then down here we have a B&W aftermarket conventional tow hitch, because the factory, you can see too where I beefed it up, I put a piece of pipe in here to beef all that up, because the factory hitch kind of loops in there. And I'll get to the reason why I wound up and had to put this B&W hitch in down here. Now this bed, I built this bed myself. I did it 10 feet over from where I'm standing right now. It originally went on my 01. Obviously, I had to make some changes to make it fit the 3rd gen chassis, but not much, not a lot of modifications. Everything worked out well. Now, as I mentioned, I've got B&W hitches in both for the gooseneck and conventional tow. It was important to me. I didn't want to say, don't fix what's not broken. There is nothing wrong with a B&W gooseneck hitch, right? I mean, I'm preaching to the choir. I did not want to mess with that. There was no reason to, where a lot of these CM North Star beds, they come with their own gooseneck wells, or the B&W installed in them. So I figured it was easier from a structural and engineering aspect. It would be easier to figure out how to incorporate the factory hitches rather than engineer the bed to be able to handle the weight and pressure and everything of everything being on the bed itself and pulling on all those mounts. So that's why you see how I have this set up. There is only 3 bolts on each side that hold this bed on. It's plenty, because why? There is no load on this bed ever, other than maybe something that you might sit on top. But that removed some of the engineering aspects, as I said. Moving on from toolboxes, or moving to toolboxes. Now here is why I wound up and had to go to the B&W hitch and ditch the factory hitch. For one, not a bad deal, because that is stronger. That's a good thing. I actually had one of the notorious issues of the second gen. I actually had a crack start to develop on the factory hitch in that truck. So I built this integrated toolbox because I don't carry a spare tire. I keep good rubber on my trucks, and if I have a tire problem, which I never have actually, I'm calling my tire guy and saying, hey, come fix this. So no spare for me. And in this toolbox, I keep my ratchet straps, I keep my spare hitches, that sort of thing. And I've got a light underneath here. Now moving on to the good stuff. This is the steak on the plate right here. I'm a big Montezuma box fan. I love Montezuma boxes. I've got 2 on the 22. I've got 1 on the 96. I've got 1 here, obviously, and 1 on that new welding trailer that I built last winter. I love Montezuma boxes. Now, this is my setup. I've got Husky and some Stanley and even some Harbor Freight. We're not getting real fancy. You know, I got some S&K ratchets. I do like having some good ratchets. I get away with maybe cheaper sockets and wrenches. I like having good ratchets, because if you don't, you just get frustrated with cheap ratchets that keep wanting to flick back to reverse or back to forward on you, and cheap teeth and stuff. So like I said, S&K ratchets. Got a couple of spares in here too. This is a Stanley, but my swivel head. Husky screwdrivers. These aren't bad, actually. Not too bad. Craftsman drivers. We've got some snap-on in there. There it is. We got a snap-on little critter here. What is this little? It's not even a screwdriver. It's a little, my brain is, I don't know, a little scraper almost. My brain's slipping here what exactly that's called. But I've got some gear wrench. I keep gear wrench, ratcheting wrenches in here. I've got, this is actually mostly Harbor Freight Pittsburgh extended length wrenches. You know what? I've actually had some pretty good luck with those wrenches, for especially what they cost. Of course, a staple that a lot of guys like are the Harbor Freight impact sockets. Yeah, same thing. Really having a whole lot of trouble with those. 1/2-inch drive Stanley shallow sockets. I've got my Torx in here. I've got Allen wrenches. I've got a paint pen for odds and ends. I got some picks, more Allens. I think those are metric. These are SAE in here. Punches. Tape measure always stays right there, easy to access. And all of my boxes, that's where it goes. We've got air tools, extensions. You can see pretty much I got my micro screwdrivers right there. I like having them because I use those a lot for little tiny things. 1/4-inch drive sockets, 3/8 drive sockets, 3/8 shallow, deep. Pretty simple setup. I've got my pliers, vice grips, that sort of thing in here. I keep, this is the electrical compartment. We got my multimeter. I've got just a regular good old-fashioned light tester, 12-volt tester in here. And then back here I keep my hammers. I've got a lot of actually miscellaneous stuff in here right now. I got oil filter pliers. I usually keep my impact driver in here with a couple of DeWalt batteries, and I've got some miscellaneous. These are some parts, small parts. Little handy cabinet or cubby back in here. A lot of random stuff gets tossed in there and kept safe, out of the weather, out of the wind, that sort of thing. Down here, I built this little tray that holds all my DeWalt cordless stuff. I've got my 1/2-inch impact, my drill. Some of this stuff is 18 volt that I convert with the adapter. I've got everything notched out for like the circular saw. You can see it's got a slot for it, and it just sits then right down in there. Same thing, got pegs to hold the grinder. In the very back, I've got my air one. I've got a pry bar back there, pipe wrench, drill bits. Tucked in there is a big crescent wrench. Over here, we got a really fancy snap-on cardboard box for holding my consumable cans. Nah, just a regular cardboard box. When it starts to fall apart, I go find another cardboard box that fits the bill for this little size. So, towels, glass cleaner, starting fluid, some Freon, WD-40, disposable gloves. I love disposable gloves. I don't spend $20+ on those fancy gloves. I go through them so fast. Anyway, so that's my setup in here. As you can see, that's the mechanic section for the most part. Get it done. The truth is, I can do 75% of the things that I need to do around the farm out of this truck and out of this section right here when it comes to the mechanics. Now, we got here, this is my emergency light bar. I love having an emergency light bar. If you're working alongside the road or hauling overweight stuff, goofy stuff like I do, I can't recommend having a light bar enough, because it tells people that are half asleep on their way to work with their coffee halfway in their face, something is different, something is not ordinary coming at me. I need to wake up and pay attention to the road and get off of Facebook, right? So that's what that accomplishes. This is a cargo camera back here that's tied into my iPad. 100-gallon fuel tank, 20-gallon GPM pump. This is a fill right. I'm a fill right guy. I've had really good luck. This thing has pumped so much fuel. This thing's pumped probably 50,000 gallons, maybe more. Never touched it, never opened it, never had to do anything to it. Now, I built this later on. Actually, this came a little bit later, a couple years after I built this bed. Extra compartment in here, and this, I got 2 grease guns that are held right there. I've got pins here that hold my high lift jack, and this is actually my winch bar that I leave resting right there, holds it in place. My custom shovel holder, and then over here I keep usually my jugs of oils. Like this is hydraulic. We got a gallon of coolant. You know, sometimes it's engine oil, whatever. That's what's here today. And then miscellaneous area here for storage. Now I got my roll air compressor, your standard issue wheelbarrow style compressor with about 11 CFM and 90 PSI. For the most part, this sucker makes enough air for everything I need to do. Blowing out filters, blowing out radiators, obviously airing up tires, that's easy. But I gotta have air on board. I can't really go without having air. I gotta have air. And then I got my 50-foot hose reel. And then right here, this is where I keep my port. We're real fancy here. My airbags. I have, and I mentioned earlier, this is a non-camper special. This truck has no overload. So it's like, okay, when I put this truck together, how do I solve that issue? Airbags. The simplest, instead of trying to find a set of overloads out of the wrecking yard and try to incorporate all that in, I mean, I had my 01 was a camper special with overloads, and I still put airbags in that truck. So airbags was the easiest solution. We got a set of Firestone airbags in here. This is where we air it up. You know, I put 60, 70 pounds in them. I push them kind of the max. So the 5,000 pound rated ones, I push them to the max to be able to keep up with some of the pin weights that get put on this truck. Now, down here, pretty simple setup. I've got hardware. I got both metric, 1/4 inch through 3/8. This is miscellaneous. I've got all kinds of electrical stuff in here. I've got roll pins, I've got air fittings, I've got pipe fittings, hose clamp, Teflon tape, all kinds of small odds and ends. You never know. I'm deep in the field, a long ways away from the Home Depot to pick up something that I need because I need one stupid bolt or whatever. Same thing, this is my large hardware. We're getting into 1/2 inch through 3/4 down there. So those just stay in there. I got my jumper cables. That pretty much covers everything that I keep on board in this truck. Now inside, you'll notice, if you notice that this truck was an SLT with cloth interior in the video, the barn find video, I did find a full Laramie conversion. Door panels, seats, the dash components, everything, to get this truck converted over to Laramie status. And because I like leather, I'm a leather guy, I like it a lot better. And so that's what's going on in here as far as interior. We've got a Jensen floating screen stereo. It's okay, it works. That's a future thing, as I like my tunes. That probably will be a future project for this truck, is going ahead and upgrading the door speakers, maybe getting like a 110 under the back seat, and we'll see, maybe even a better floating screen unit. That Jensen is okay. At the best, it's okay. Like I said, exhaust brake right here, 6-speed. I've got my controller. Right here is my controller for my light bar. So it's real quick, easy to access. I can get to the functions real quick to change the different settings. Got a set of gauges, keep an eye on everything. And this truck, you barely even need gauges. This truck, I don't think I've hardly ever even had it above 1100 degrees. The 4-inch exhaust and the Smarty, good combination. It does really well on keeping itself cool. Now the color of this truck is a GM NAH is the code. I just fell in love with that GM color. It's kind of a bronzy color. I don't know, I love it. And I painted my 01 originally and wound up and painted this one, and I started painting some of my equipment trailers this color. It's kind of become my color. Now, I did a few extras on this one when it came to finishing off the exterior. We've got some pretty cool lights here with an LED strip that looks like a Laramie 5th gen. I did the sport bumper, the factory sport bumper on this with the match painted grille and everything. And 4th gen mirrors, match painted by me, match painted door handles. I like all that stuff. Some guys call that the SinCal look. Hey, I grew up in that era of weld wheels and match painted and chrome and everything. So that still hangs with me. Factory 4th gen clear roof lights, cab roof lights. That was actually, they're pretty easy to install if you know what you're doing. This is actually the 2nd set of cab roof lights I've done on a truck that didn't have them from the factory. Added them. So really, like I said, those are some of the things I did to kind of dress this truck up, make it look pretty sleek. Yeah, and a buddy of mine, the first time I showed this truck to him after got it all done, he's like, you know, you kind of walk around and it's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of a Playboy truck. That's what he called it, you know. And then he's like, but then you kind of walk around it and it's like, okay, maybe a Playboy truck, but she's ready to work. You can tell that too. So that's kind of where I try to blend a little bit of style with, you know, a little bit of form in there with the function. I'm the only one that drives it. I kind of enjoy having something looks pretty good, and that's, like I said, my style anyway. Everybody has a difference of opinion how to do things or whatnot, but this is kind of the look that I like. And the last thing this truck comes equipped with is a matching coffee thermos. Now this right here, this can be remotely removed, taken onto actually the job site, onto another piece of equipment. Wherever you might need it to go, it can go on the bed, it can go in the cup holder, it goes to multiple places, works really well. Great addition to any truck, I highly recommend it. So there it is, there's the rig rundown on my 04. That covers everything on what works really well for me as a professional commercial farmer, turning wrenches on the simple things in the field, blowing out filters, 100-gallon tank. That thing, like I said, I use that 100-gallon tank like crazy. 100 gallons of fuel is nothing on a big day for us. Plenty of flatbed space. Obviously, towing capabilities, front, back, whatever needs to be done there. I usually even have my Anderson hitch on the back of this truck. It's on the 96 right now. And fantastic rig. And I'll tell you something else. You know, if you follow my channel, which you should be, because we got good content here, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. I'd appreciate it. If you follow the channel, you know what's up with the 22. I got that North Star SD. You know what? I'm gonna let you in a little secret here. In some ways, this is a simpler setup that I like actually better. I love my 22. It's a limited, it's so comfortable, and that truck is kind of a towing monster. But the bed itself, in a lot of ways, from a practical use, this is a better setup for me. Yes, I have more tools. Yes, that jumps up into more of a light-ish, medium-duty service type situation with that bed. I do have a lot more tools on board, but like I said, 75% of the time, I can get it done with what's on board here. And as a farming aspect, you're fueling a lot. I only have an 80-gallon tank on that truck. 20 extra gallons makes a difference. You'd be surprised on that. My air compressor setup is a lot easier to use. My 22, I got to jump up into the toolbox, up in the bed. I love how you never even know there was an air compressor in that truck. It looks sleek, it looks good, but to get air out and going is a lot more difficult than it is in this truck. This is fast, it's easy. I really enjoy this truck. I'm glad and I'm very fortunate and humbled to be able to purchase this from the people that sold it to me. And I enjoy driving it every day. It's probably never going to be for sale. I've got multiple boys and they love it. It ain't going nowhere for a long time, and it's been a good rig, and it will be a good rig for a very long time. So I got a load to go fetch. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. It's an early morning out here getting a pump going, putting some fuel in. Give you a quick little light tour. Got my takedown light up there on my light bar. Kind of helps project out a little bit further, a little extra light further out. This is my Montezuma box, lit up blue. Just enough light where I can see in there. Could be a little brighter, but it's not bad, it's enough. Now down here, plenty green going on in there. I got back in here, I got my purple light going on so I can see in that box, and kind of adds a cool little flare in there. Same thing, we're purple down, or green down here. And the last box, also green. And those are pretty nice to light up everything behind me, because it gets dark out here, out in the middle of nowhere. It gets dark, so lighting's important to me. I like to have good lighting.
for two reasons. One, obviously, we got the function going on up there, but then I like my purple, and those lights are for fun. So there we go. There's on the lights.